Welcome once again. We are going to talk about the second unit, which is teachers stroke manpower and cost analysis, ADA 844, Module 3, educational statistics for educators. And we have questions here picked from the previous examination. And the first question we have here is, if there were 250,000 teachers in the teaching stock of a state in 2020, year T, there were 280 teachers in 2021, year T plus 1, and 80,000 new teachers employed in 2021, calculate the teacher retention and attrition rates in 2021. We have the question to calculate the manpower demanded by Springforth Secondary School in year 2021 if all these files are given. Please, we like to move on. Question 3, what is non-schooling gap? And the second part is, a primary school has a total enrollment of 530 pupils with an average size of 35. Okay, 35. The pupils sit two to a table with separate chairs. In the process of restructuring, how many chairs and table would you plan for? And how many classrooms would be needed? The last question we'd like to look at here is a state projected school enrollment is 250,000. Student teacher ratio is 45:1. Calculate the required teachers in the state school. We are going to answer these questions. I would like you to get your calculator by your side so we can move on smoothly. Begin with the first question here. If there were 250,000 teachers in the teaching stock of a state in 2020, there were 280,000 teachers in 2021, and 80,000 new teachers employed in 2021. Calculate the teacher retention and attrition rates in 2021. Quite simple, but before we move on, let us look at what we did before on retention and attrition rates. Retention rate is used to measure the degree of persistence of students or teachers in the school system. It is the rate of return of students or the teachers to the school system at the beginning of a new academic session in pursuance of their course or their career. Attrition rate, on the other hand, measures the degree at which the input into a system wears or thins down. It is a measure of the degree at which the students or teachers leave the school system, especially when they have not completed their academic program or they have not finished their course, or for the teachers when they have not finished their career. The reasons for teachers leaving may include withdrawal of service. It may be resignation, it may be dismissal, it may be death, it may be retirement. All these can contribute to teachers leaving the school system. So in summary, the teachers retention measures the extent at which teachers leave, are retained in the school system. The extent at which the teachers are retained in the school system, while the attrition rate measures the extent at which teachers leave the school system. Again, I take that the attrition rate measures the extent at which teachers leave the school system, while retention rate measures the extent at which the system retains its teacher, so to say. So we have a way of expressing the retention rate. This is what we have. Look at this formula very well. The retention rate is calculated using this formula here, and let's quickly explain the formula. We have the T here raised to the power of T, which means the number of teachers in stock, that is for the year that is just completed. Then we have the N raised to the power of T plus 1. This actually means the number of teachers newly employed. The number of teachers newly employed. And the last term we have here is the T raised to the power of T plus 1, which means the number of teachers in the new academic session. The number of teachers in the new academic session minus the number of teachers newly employed over the total number of teachers in stock multiplied by 100. This will give us the retention rate. To calculate the attrition rate, we can simply subtract the retention rate from 100. This will give us the attrition rate. In other words, we can use the formula here. Attrition rate is equal to T raised to the power of T, which is the number of teachers in stock, minus the number of teachers in the new academic year, then subtract the newly employed teachers, and then divide it by the number of teachers in stock again, multiplied by 100. Take it this way. We first of all subtract the newly employed teachers from the total number of teachers in the new academic year, and then we subtract the result from the number of teachers in stock, and then divide it by the number of teachers in stock, multiply it by 100. The formula looks somehow, but when we start calculating, I believe you will understand what we are talking about. It's quite simple. Just follow it and you will see that it's very simple to do so. All right, let's resolve the question together. We have in the question the total number of teachers in stock 250,000. The number of teachers in the new academic year is 280,000 teachers, and then we have the newly employed teachers as 80,000. Take note of this as we use a formula now. The teacher's retention rate is calculated by using the formula T raised to the power of T plus 1, which is the new academic year, minus the number of newly employed teachers, which is N raised to the power of T plus 1 that you see here, and then we have the total number of teachers in stock. And when we substitute into this formula, we're going to have the total number of teachers in stock, new year, the new academic session, 280,000. We put it here, then minus the number of newly employed teachers, then over the number of teachers in stock, that is the year just completed, 250,000. then we multiply the whole expression by 100. And when we further express this, we're going to have 280,000 minus 80,000, which will give us 200,000, and over 250 here times 100. And when you simplify this, you're going to have the result as 80%. You can do that and see, check that on your calculator to verify. We can actually express this in decimal by leaving it at 80 over 100, and that will give us 0.8 in decimal. So it means that the school has the retention capacity, the retention rate of 80%. Take note of that. Then the attrition rate can simply be calculated by subtracting this the retention rate we just calculated from 100, and that is 100 minus the retention rate. And when we do this, we're going to have 100 minus 80, and that will give us 20%. Another way of calculating the retention rate, as stated earlier, the attrition rate, as stated earlier, is by subtracting the number of newly employed teachers, if there are any, from the total number of teachers that are currently in the school system, from the number of teachers that are in stock. Remember, we said this very T means the number of teachers, total number of teachers that are in stock, that is the year that is just completed. Then this means the total number of teachers in the new academic session, and we have this as the number of newly employed teachers. So when we substitute into this formula, we're going to have 250,000, which is the number of teachers in stock, that is teachers in the teaching stock of the state in year 2020. Then we subtract the difference between the total number of teachers now in 2021 and the newly employed teachers in 2021, and we're going to have it as 250,000 minus 200,000, because when we subtract 80,000 from 280,000, we're going to have 200,000. And when we do this further, we're going to have 250,000 minus 200,000. That will give us 50,000 over 250,000 multiplied by 100, and this will still give us 20%, as we had earlier, using the first method of calculating the attrition rate. Let us now discuss the concept of projection and methods now. We are aware that the major function of educational planning is to make projection and prepare estimate on future needs. By projection, we mean a systematic forecast of the future events based on the present realities, that is, based on the present events. A planner should be able to decide accurately how many schools or colleges will be required in a country in the future dates, based on the data on the existing ones. He should be able to determine how many school buildings may have to be built or replaced and the likely cost in the future. To do all this, there are skills and methods he must adopt as a planner. we are going to discuss the methods of projection here. The first method noted here is student-teacher ratio method of projection. We have other methods of projection for projecting the manpower of an economy or a school system. We have the employer's opinion method. We have the incremental labor output ratio method. We have the density ratio method. We have the international comparison method and the Pan-Mediterranean regional project approach. We are going to actually consider two of these methods. These are the ones that are related to the questions we raised earlier. The first one is the student-teacher ratio method of projection, and the second is the employer's opinion method. With this, we'll be able to resolve all the questions we have raised. Let's begin with the first one, student-teacher ratio method of projection. In our previous discussion, we stated that the student-teacher ratio simply means the number of students that will be taken by a teacher. The number of students that will be taken by a teacher. If a teacher is to teach 30 students or pupils, so to say, then the student-teacher ratio will be 30:1, which is 30/1, and that will give us 30. That is how to determine the student-teacher ratio of any academic institution. Now, let's talk about the student-teacher ratio method of projection now. In the course material, it is given that this method is very useful where complex data on hours taught by a teacher or received by students are absent. The student-teacher ratio method of projection is obtained by simply dividing the number of enrollments, or the projected enrollments, by the student-teacher ratio. If, for instance, we have the projected enrollments to be 2,000 students or pupils, and the student-teacher ratio is 20, then when we talk of this method now, we are simply going to divide that 2,000 by 20. So the formula is given as the teachers required will be equal to the projected enrollments, which is this x that we see, s raised to power of t sub s that you can see here. That is the projected enrollment over the student-teacher ratio. Then we have the number of teachers that will be required in the future. The teacher workload method of projection is also given here. It is obtained by dividing the total students period per week by the total teachers period per week. This is similar to what we have here. So if we want to determine the average audience now, all we need to do is to divide the total students period per week by the total teachers period per week. This will give us the average audience. From the formula, we can project the number of teachers needed from a projected population of students. Now, let's attempt the question we raised earlier. A state projected school enrollment is 250,000. Student teacher ratio is 45 to, that is 45 ratio 1. Calculate the required teachers in the state school. It's quite simple. All we need to do is to employ this formula again. Teachers required will be equal to the projected enrollment, which is this 250,000, and the student teacher ratio will be equal to 45. That is 45 ratio 1, which is 45. So when we do this, we simply going to have a solution this way. The formula again, where this is equal to 250,000 and the student teacher ratio is 45 ratio 1, which is 45, and we are simply going to have 250,000 over 45, and this will give us 5,555.56. But since we cannot have a fraction of teachers, all we need to have is to approximate this to 5,556, and this is how approximation is done. You can see after the decimal point we have 5, 6. The first digit after the decimal point is 5. Since it's up to 5, we round it up to 1 and add it to the digit before it, which is 5 here, and the 5 will turn to 6. That is 5 plus 1 will be equal to 6. But note that if this digit after the decimal point is not up to 5, let's say it's 4 or 3 or 2 or 1, all we need to do is to round it down to 0. If you round it down to 0, you add it, it will not have any effect on the digit before it, so it will still remain 5,555. That is in the case where the digit after the decimal point is not up to 5. But if it is up to 5 or more than 5, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then we round it up to 1 and add it to the digit before it, which is 5 here, and it will become 6. This is how to approximate. Let's discuss the second method now, the employer opinion method. This method, according to course material, is popular in making short-term forecasts for high-level manpower. In this method, employers of labor are asked through questionnaire their future manpower needs in quantity and type. After necessary estimates, the results will give the demand of educated labor in a future date. So it is expressed by the formula. Let's give the formula here. We have the M, which means the manpower demanded in target year. We have L here, which means labor demanded by employer, I in target year, and we have R, which is the retirement in establishment, and death, which is D, which means death in establishment. Now let's take a look at the question again. Calculate the manpower demanded by Springforth Secondary School in year 2021 if the summation of Springforth Secondary School manpower needs in year 2021 is equal to 60,000. The projected retirements is equal to 5,000, and the projected death is 2,500. So we are required to make use of this formula. In case the formula will not be given, always remember to employ the formula. It's simply the manpower demanded is equal to labor demanded or labor required minus the sum of the retirement and debts. So that is what we need to calculate the manpower demanded. Solution. So we use the formula here. where this is given already. We have explained that. All we need to do is to substitute the facts that are given in this question into our formula. We have to substitute the facts here. We have L to be equal to 60,000, the retirement 5,000, and the debt 2,500. Now let's do that quickly. We have okay, the manpower demanded will be equal to the L, which is the labor demanded now 60,000, minus the sum of these. We have to sum these first, 5,000 plus 2,500, and this will give us the expression this way, because 5,000 plus 2,500 is equal to 7,500. Remember, you have to add the expression in the bracket first, following the rule of BODMAS. The bracket has to be summed first. I mean, the items in the bracket has to be summed first, then we can now subtract it from what we have outside the bracket there, which is 60,000 minus 7,500, and we are going to have 52,500. Let's answer this question now. What is non-schooling gap? Non-schooling gap is the gap that exists between those who are in school and those that are supposed to be there, but due to one way or the other, they are out of the school system. There are several reasons that may lead to this non-schooling gap. It may occur when parents may not be able to afford the cost of schooling, the cost of education, so they keep their children at home to follow them to farm or to sell items in the market or at home, or to learn one trade or the other to earn their living. It is measured by subtracting the figure of those who are in the school system from those that are supposed to be in the school system, that belong to that age group. So non-schooling gap is equal to the population of age group who are supposed to be in the school system minus the population of those in the age group who are in the school system. I believe with this you'll be able to restructure your own answer the way you will want it to look like. All right, let's solve this question now. Primary school has a total enrollment of 530 pupils with an average class size of 35. The pupils sit stool to a table with separate chairs. Please take note of this expression. The pupils sit stool to a table with separate chairs. In the process of restructuring, how many chairs and tables would you plan for? That is the first aspect of the question. And how many classrooms would be needed? Quite simple. What we need to take a look at, one, the number of enrollments. Number two, the condition for the seating arrangements. We have two to a table with separate chairs. It means they're going to make use of separate chairs. And then the class size is 35. All right. These are the facts we need to make our plan. Since we are given that the pupils will use separate share, it means that we are going to plan for 530 shares. So 530 shares will be needed. And for the tables, they are to sit 2 to a table. If they are to sit 2 to a table, then we are going to divide the total number of enrollments by 2. And this will give us 265. So we need 530 shares and 265 tables. That is what we are to plan for. Then, how many classrooms will be needed? How many classrooms will be needed? Sorry, before talking about that, I understand that in the course material, we are given that the number of shares tables that can be estimated by dividing the number of classrooms by 2. I don't actually agree with that anyway, because if you do that, it means we are going to have 2 pupils per class. 2 pupils per class. I believe that may be a mistake or an oversight there. Please, you can review that on I think it's in module 3, unit 1 of module 3. Please take a look at that on your own and see what I'm talking about. And then to calculate the number of classroom now, all we need to do is to divide the total enrollments. We divide the total enrollments by the class size. We have the total enrollments to be 530 and the class size is given as 35. And when we do this, we are going to have 530 over 35, and the number of classrooms needed will be equal to 15.14. But since we do not have fraction of a classroom, we have to approximate this to 15 classroom. Take note of that. Remember how to approximate. 1 we have after the decimal point, that is the digit we have after the decimal point is 1. It's not up to 5. So we round it down to 0 and add it to the digit before it. Thanks for watching Maths Guru's video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and share our video so others may benefit from this service. Thank you and stay tuned.